This is Brandon Hill, and today I'm going to teach you how to use clips in Maschine. I'm going to tell you what they are, and I'm going to share my top 16 tips that I use when using clips. Tips 1 through 13 go over the fundamentals and common use cases, but tips 14 through 16 get into some more advanced stuff, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. Let's get into it. So what are clips exactly? So in Maschine, you're used to seeing patterns like this when you're in song mode. This is what clips look like, and they're labeled as clips when you add them. Clips are continuous regions of pattern data that reside within a track, and they offer you another way to build your song out. So within your clips, you could have MIDI, for example. You could create MIDI notes in here like this, or you could have an audio file, which is what I commonly use it for. Unlike traditional patterns in Maschine, which are looped sequences of fixed length, like this, clips give you more flexibility. So with a clip, you could stretch them out, you could shrink them like that. You can move them freely between the grid, and importantly, you can move them between two scenes like this. So with a pattern, for example, you wouldn't be able to do this. You don't have this freedom. And in essence, clips bring a more DAW-like linear sequencing approach to Maschine's traditionally loop-based workflow. So rather than having this rigid one scene with this pattern, and so forth, you could use these clips and insert them wherever you like and build them out vertically like this, which looks more familiar to something like Ableton or FL Studio. One key feature of clips is that they can only exist in song mode here. You cannot create clips in ideas mode. Now that you know what clips are, let's get into those 16 tips now. Tip number 1 is using the hardware to create clips. So imagine we're here, we're in song view, and you could create a clip by doing this. Make sure you're not in section mode. You want to have clip activated because now when you create something, you'll be adding a clip. So let's pick a group like this one here. I'm on group F, and I'm going to place my position marker by holding Shift and using the 40 encoder. So you could see in my display here, that's where the position marker is. Now I can hit create here, and you could see on the software and in my screen if you zoom in that a clip has been created. So let me go over here. Now I have this created clip that you could see. And tip 2 is that you could adjust your clips in the hardware with these knobs here. So once you create a clip, you could adjust the positioning of it right here. You could adjust the start of the clip to shorten the beginning, or you could adjust the end of the clip to lengthen this out. Tip number 3 is that you could adjust the arrangement grid settings to make these movements easier. So what do I mean by that? So with the arranged grid, that is up here. So right now my arranged grid is set to 1/8. And you could set it to 1 bar, you could set it to 1/16. But why is this important? Because when you're working with clips, if I have it set to 1/16 and I move my clip, it's going to move in 1/16. And when I adjust the length, it's going to move in 1/16. Sometimes that could take forever when you're trying to make a clip 3 bars longer, for example, right? So what I could do there is you could change the arrange settings to 1 bar. Now when I move this, it's going to jump in greater increments. And when I adjust the length, now you could move things in 1 bar length. Going into tip number 4 is that you could take this hashtag off to move your clips freely along the grid. So one of the things that I talked about with clips that's great is that you have the flexibility to place them in your song in between two scenes, for example. But sometimes when you have a special effect like this, and you have the bulk of this effect here, let's listen to it. And then you have this tail, which could be a reverb or something. Sometimes you need to precisely place this. And if you're stuck to the grid like this, you might find trouble placing it exactly where you want. That's where you want to take this hashtag off to remove that. Now you can freely move this on the grid and precisely have the peak of this sound, for example, line up with the end or line up with this grid right there. Tip number 5 is that you could add a clip simply by placing your play marker somewhere and double clicking where you want this clip added. If you want it in this group, for example, place the play marker there, double click. With tip number 6, while working with clips, there's something called section mode and something called clip mode. So for example, in the hardware here, you can see there's section and clip. So when you're in section, you're working with the scenes and you're working with patterns here. So remember on the last tip where I told you you could double click? Well, if you're in section mode and you double click, you're going to see that a pattern was added. And that's not what you want sometimes. What you want to be is in clip mode. So to switch between section and clip, one of the 3 ways is to do it here. So I could hit section, I could hit clip. Now, when I double click, I'm adding a clip, right? Another way to switch between these modes is to double click up here in the pattern. You see this highlight under here? That means I'm in section mode. And just to confirm, if I double click, a pattern is added. To switch back, you could click clip on the hardware again, and now you could add like that. The third way to switch between this, which is a keyboard shortcut, you could press C on your keyboard, and you see how now I'm in section mode, designated by that highlight up there. Now I'm in clip mode. So use those three methods to switch back and forth between those two. If you find yourself trying to add a clip and you end up adding a pattern, that means you're in section mode. I'm going to add a new scene here to demonstrate the next tip. Okay, I've added this new scene here because I want to demonstrate with tip number 7 is that you could live record a clip. So if you're in clip mode, right, and you can hit shift record, and I'm just going to record this with a 1/16. So you could create a clip by live recording it. You see that? So now you've created this clip, and I just did a simple thing there, but you could do it with the snare roll, for example. So you can live record that clip, and now you can move it around and adjust it like you like. You could change this up so the clip, that little silence before, is removed, and now you're free to put this wherever you want. Now let's talk about when clips are useful to use. Tip number 8 is to use clips for sound effects and transitions. So I frequently do this in my songs. Like here, for example, I have 2 groups right here. This group I created, all risers and downlifters. Let me solo this, and you could hear what effect I have here. So this is the effect I have here. Also, in this group, I added a sweep sound. Now together, I have this transition with these sound effects. If I take that off, you could hear that it helps me transition from this scene into this scene. So whenever I'm thinking about what transitions I want, I may add a new group here. I'll name it effect or something. I'll load some effects on there, and then I'll add a clip and make my adjustments. And the way I would do this, for example, is I would go to a sweep and swell or something like that, and I'll pick something. Let's imagine I'm finding something. Let's do this. So I'm going to load this up. Now I have this loaded up. Now the way that I typically do it is I go to plugin, and right now it's set to sampler. I like to change it to the audio module. So I'll change it to audio. Now I have this audio file here that I could adjust. So I'll do that, and then I might place it. Let's just do that. So now I have this sound effect added. And you can make adjustments how you like. Tip number 9 is to use clips when you're using vocals or acapellas when you're making a song or a remix. So this group here, I have this vocal sample, and what I've done is just throughout this song, I've used this vocal. So let's go here, for example, or wherever this is. Let me play this, and this vocal is what you hear.
Back to the old school, way back in the day.
And just like with the last tip, I used this clip and I used an audio file so I could adjust it. Also, this is the same vocal, I just chopped it up. And this is one thing you could do with clips really easily, is you can make these vocal chops, and you can see that they get bigger, bigger, smaller, smaller, smaller as the buildup starts to happen. See? So clips are great, and pretty much whenever I work with vocals or anything in Maschine, I exclusively use clips because it's just so easy to create a clip, add the audio file, and move it freely and do all these types of edits, such as in this area. Also, with this build up and drop right here, tip number 10 is that you could use clips to create pockets of silence. So let's listen here, and you're going to hear this clap, and then there's going to be a pocket of silence before the drop happens. Right here.
To the old school.
Okay, so the thing that happened here, so you could see right here, there's this pattern happens, and then this clip is just a pocket of silence. So before I did that, let me clear it, or let me delete this. Before I did that, I had this pattern here. So this pattern with all this data, and you'll hear it. You hear that? So that ruins the whole vibe of this. So I like to use clips to create pockets of silence. So right now, this grayed out area, that's my underlying pattern. Now I could create a clip, and now whenever you create a clip, it's empty until you add something to it. But you could use this emptiness to your advantage. So I could shield or cover up all this data you see here. I could cover up all that sound data with this clip. And the result of that is that you have created a pocket of silence. And now we're good. Tip number 11 is that you could convert entire scenes into clips to adjust freely. So for example, let's imagine I added this scene. This is a scene, these are all patterns here. I can't do anything to this. I can't make any edits unless I come back here and I edit the scene in ideas mode. So what you could do for some freedom, right click up here, hit convert to clips. Now all of these have been converted to clips. And now with any of these, you could make adjustments, you could delete certain things, you could move things around. You could add new sounds or MIDI information to these clips, and it'll all be unique to this clip. For example, if I undo all this, if I'm here and I'm working with this scene and I want to make adjustments, sure, I could come here and I might be able to edit this pattern, but whatever I edit here is going to impact all the other scenes where this pattern is used. So that's one of the limitations of scenes and patterns, is that you would have to make a unique pattern to make those adjustments. But when you create clips and you edit any of these clips, that edit is unique and it won't impact anything else in your song. So another great benefit of clips. With tip number 12, if you don't want to convert your whole scene to clips, you can convert a single pattern to clips. So right here, I'm clicking on this pattern and you have to enter section mode. So there I'm in section mode designated by that yellow line. I can right click, convert to clip. Now it's just that single pattern that's been converted to a clip. Let's talk about manipulating these clips, in particular duplicating, because you'll be duplicating clips a lot. Like with this vocal here, for example, I use this simple 8-bar vocal throughout this whole thing. So I'm frequently duplicating it. So the 3 ways to do that: one, you could hold Option or Start on your keyboard. So I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard, drag my mouse, and now this clip is duplicated. That's an easy way. Also, you could right click, duplicate, and now you have that to use. The third way is to go into your arranger view, you're in clip mode, and you could select your clips here with this 40 encoder. So you could see in the software with that white box, now I have this clip here. I can hit duplicate. Now I have that there. So those 3 ways you could duplicate. Mostly I hit Option or Start on my keyboard and I drag it. That's like the easiest way to do it in my opinion. Now let's get into the more advanced things, and you could use clips for automation. So let's show how to do that. So let's create a new group here, and I'm going to call this filter. I'm going to create a clip, and I could drag it however long. I just want to demonstrate how you could use this. And what I'm going to do, let's pick a group such as the drums. So the drums, just this here. Okay. I am going to go to the mixer view. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to send this from the master. Oh, whoops. So before that, one thing I forgot to do, I named this filter. I forgot to add the filter to it. So on this sound here, I'm going to add a filter. Now go back to mixer view. I'm up here. I'm going to send the drum kit's sound. Instead of going to the master, I'm going to send it to this filter. So now when I make adjustments to this filter, it will impact this group here since this sound's being sent to the filter. So right now I have this filter activated. One thing I'm going to do just to make this easier for navigation, I'm going to drag this filter up here right above that so I could work with it there. So I'm going to solo this and unmute that. So now I just have the filter and the drums activated. I'm going to go to my sound, and now you can hear this filter is impacting these drums. So what you could do is you could record an automation. So let me do that. I'm going to shift record and auto. Okay, you see that? I have this clip with automation. Let's just say I want to shrink this down to just what we used. So here's the cool part, because I have this automation, right? With the clip, this automation can be moved, duplicated, placed wherever. So if I don't want that automation to happen right here, I want it to happen over here, I could drag my clip over here. Now the beginning of this is going to sound normal, right? And when it gets right here, the automation is going to be applied. Now you have flexibility with your automation to put them in clips and you can move them wherever you like. So you don't have to keep re-recording automation. With tip number 15, we're going to utilize clips in a special case scenario where you have a clip or a pattern or something, and you have a sound that's trailing off way past its pattern. So right now I have this basic beat, and you're going to hear this 808 just trails. See like that? It trails off way over here. Sometimes if you're creating like an abrupt halt before a drop, you don't want that 808 to trail like that. So what you could do is you can create another clip, and let's just use a sound like this perk, for example. What you could do is you could set that perk, which is number 10, all the way to 0. So now you can't hear it, right? You don't hear that perk. Okay, so what we are going to do with these two sounds, we're going to set them to choke groups. So if you go to pad mode, I'll select number 9, go to pad mode, you're going to see choke group here, and you're going to set this or this to choke group 1. Now we're going to set the perk also to choke group 1. And what this is going to do, this is going to play and it's going to trail off to over here, right? But when this MIDI activates, which we can't hear, it's going to choke or cut off this sound. Now listen to this. You hear that? Now the tail no longer goes off. So it's a real niche use case for clips, but a use case nonetheless that I wanted to share with you because I frequently use it when I'm creating, I want all my sound to stop for a sec and then the beat drops or something like that. Finally, tip number 16 is that you don't even have to work in ideas mode if you don't want to. You could build everything within song mode. So let's add this clip here, add this kit, and for this group, let's add another kit. And what you could do is you could just build out these clips. And let's just say I add, or you could record. Imagine you have all this data here. You're recording or drawing in or using step with sequencer or whatever, right? What you could do is you could build out 2 bars like that. And you could build out your arrangement like this if you wanted to. Just keep duplicating. You could add to this clip, for example, and make all of these different. And then you could get into editing them. You could do something like this. Maybe right here, you don't have that. Right here, you drop this, for example. Here, you want this to come in halfway. And you could build out an entire arrangement strictly with clips. You don't even have to use patterns. So if that's something that interests you, if that's something that's easier for you, you could do that as well. Hope you learned a lot from this video, and I'll get working on the next one.